Hello and welcome to the December 2025 Current Conversations podcast. I'm Quentin Shepard, your host today. I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Public Information for Gloucester County. And today we're joined by Dan Thomas, our County Assessor. And one of the most important topics I think that we have can talk about, especially at this time, that's going to impact most every property owner in the county is the general reassessment, which is going to take effect on January 1st. Dan, welcome. We appreciate you joining us today.
Glad to be with you, Quentin.
Tell me a little bit about why we have a reassessment.
Well, first, Virginia law requires that we do reassessments periodically to recognize that real estate market value changes over time. In other words, the property tax is, again, by statute, supposed to be based upon 100% of the fair market value. And any recognition of fair market value is going to be as of a certain point in time. And in Gloucester County, most folks know we do that once every 3 years. And our date of value for this reassessment is January 1st of 2026. And so effectively, all of the assessments that we're going to send out soon will reflect our estimate of value as of January 1st of 2026. And those estimates will be based solely and entirely upon market value changes that have occurred since our prior reassessment, which was effective for 1/1/23. And I would just make a note that assessments haven't changed unless someone has done new construction over the course of those past 3 years. So you might see a more significant jump because the assessment notice is going to provide for you the 2025 value. And it's important to note that that 2025 value, if you haven't done any changes in your property over the course of the last 3 years, it's really as far as the market goes, it's really a value that was locked in January 1st of 2023. So values essentially have been frozen for those 3 years. Now it's time to change again to update on market value as Gloucester County has chosen to do their reassessments every 3 years.
You kind of explain the process of what the reassessment is, what it involves, and kind of what you all do in between each cycle of reassessments.
Well, sure. Well, obviously, the assessments are based upon the property characteristics, both land and building. And so our job is to record those, and all of that information is available online. Folks can go on and look at the assessment and the information that we have on your property. And as mentioned, those characteristics don't change much. Land certainly doesn't change much unless it's developed or cleared or what have you. And so the value of land would change in light of those particulars. Likewise with the structures. They depreciate over time, but folks also like to remodel and they'll take out permits, and we'll track the permits and record whatever changes take place. Some would add a garage or a deck or what have you, and we make the changes accordingly. So part of the process involves monitoring and keeping our data up to date. And then the other part of that process is in identifying proper sales that meet the criteria of or definition of fair market value. And I can go over that in just a moment. But because some sales aren't necessarily market sales, meaning they're not either listed on the open market or it might be a sale, say, to your neighbor, and they'll just agree without even checking market prices or what have you. And so those sales really can't be entered into the database as meeting the criteria required for a fair market price. So we're constantly monitoring all the sales and transactions that take place over time. And then we, of course, uh, analyze those sales based upon varying property types. In other words, we don't want to compare single-family homes with a fast food restaurant. In other words, like compares with like, and that's just part of the valuation process. And eventually, we get an indication through a volume of sales of what varying property types are worth and in varying locations as well. I might, mention, and again, folks would recognize that waterfront properties have react differently in the market than single-family homes that aren't on the water. And so it does depend on location, location being the first three laws of real estate appraisal.
So I guess the biggest question on taxpayers' minds is what kind of can they expect by way of an increase when they receive those notices in the mail?
Sure. Yeah, exactly. That's the $64,000 question. And um, so if we look at simply the sales data that's out there, say by some of the realtor organizations, they would track at 22% at the sale properties have increased 22% since the first quarter of 2023, which, as mentioned earlier, was our previous reassessment. And that bit of information tracks perfectly with our experience. In other words, overall, non-waterfront single-family dwellings have increased roughly 22%. However, those are only the properties that sold, and most of the properties didn't sell. We had maybe roughly 600 properties that sold. We have roughly 16,000 dwellings of various types, if you include mobile homes and condos, and waterfront properties. So all of them. So for the single family dwelling anyway, the overall increase is 16%. So folks can expect more or less at least that much. But even in that case, some properties or neighborhoods may have increased at a little bit different rate. So just because yours is over 16% doesn't make it wrong. There's a number of factors that go into that percentage, and we always hate giving that percentage out because, again, everyone assumes, that's where I'm at, but that just may not be the case. So we gauge it on an individual property basis. Just as put out a few other statistics for you, condos actually increased at 17%. Mobile homes increased across the board at 18%. And again, there's a number of factors behind all of those increases. So, but those are overall statistics. What we call waterfront premium properties, and that's defined simply in this case anyway, as homes, waterfront homes that are on the rivers, the more desirable properties. They increased overall roughly 21%, as opposed to other waterfront properties that are on creeks and channels, et cetera. They increased about 18%. And then waterfront vacant land increased 26%, and waterfront vacant land on the creeks and channels, they increased roughly 20%. Might be interesting to note multifamily housing apartment type structures, they only increased in value at 8%, and commercial and industrial properties increased around 12%. So all of those statistically make up the overall increase in the county of values at 17%.
We're all going to kind of be waiting with bated breath to get those notices in our mailboxes. When can we expect those?
Right. Right now, we're targeting the first week of December for
Okay.
our mailing. Um, and it seems like we're on track for that. So folks can expect them, shortly thereafter. Let's put it
Okay.
that way. We're sending out approximately 25,000 notices. So
That's quite a bit of work. Yeah.
it is.
So, when somebody receives their notice and they feel like something may be wrong or they'd like to appeal, there are several options and a process to do that. So, can you kind of walk us through what somebody would need to do if they feel like there's a discrepancy in their notice?
Yes. Um, and this will be broken down in a flyer that we're including in the mailing. But essentially, you want to check your assessment and maybe check it in light of your neighbors. That's usually the first thing you want to do. And you can go online and just look around at similar homes that are in your neighborhood or on your street, that sort of thing. Um, and they can do that. And again, the flyer, as well as I think the notice, gives you the link that you can log on to do that. And if you still think something's amiss or what have you, or um, value just doesn't seem in line with what you may estimate your property is worth. Again, there's other avenues you can check. Google, I think, and Realtor.com. They have value estimators, and you may or may not trust those. But if you're certain that you want to appeal, then the process is to go online again to the assessor's webpage, and there's an appeal application form that needs to be filled out. And what you want to do when you submit that form is also submit the data, appraisals if you have them, or other data that you believe make your case, or an assessment review, at which time we'll receive that information and based upon the information you submit and the other information that we've based our values on, we'll review all those and then get back to you in writing. And the other option is to, again, go online and fill out the appeal application, but you may also want to call our office and set up an appointment for review. And then that way you'll speak to one of the deputies or myself, and we'll set up reviews towards the end of December and through the month of January. So you have plenty of opportunity to get those review applications posted. I think the deadline for that is mid-January. So there should be ample time for that to take place. So those are the two channels that you can go to prior, or you can skip that channel. And there's a board of equalization, and they're going to meet in April. And so you may want to go down that particular route. Their appeal applications are also online. It would be best to talk, I think, to the appraisal staff first, just to get a solid response from those who are responsible for generating the values. But if you still have an issue, in other words, if after you've visited with us or submitted your information and you receive a letter from us that isn't satisfactory as to what you think market value is, then you'll want to perhaps fill out an application with the Board of Equalization. And they'll go through the same process whereby they set up formal appointments that you appear before them and present your data, and then they'll review it and make a decision generally right then and there. And so you'll know where you stand almost immediately. So those are the primary channels of appeal. And all that is spelled out in the notice. So just read those carefully, and there you have it.
And I do have to put a plug in for Dan and his staff. A lot of times, you know, folks may find it difficult to go in and speak about their property and the value of their property with someone from the county. But I've heard, I know personally from multiple friends and family members that have gone in and spoken with Dan or um, one of his team members, just how courteous and professional each of them are and how helpful they are in explaining the process. They take as much time as you need to help you understand, and I think that really goes a long way. So I just want to thank you, Dan, for that and instilling that mantra with your staff.
Well, yeah, I mean, transparency is so key. And I think folks, need to be settled with the process. And so I appreciate those words. Very kind.
Definitely.
And
Definitely.
we do our best.
So as we kind of wrap up here, are there any other points or bits of information that you wanted to share that we have not been able to talk about yet?
Well, there might be a couple. One I would mention, and I mentioned this in a presentation a couple, 2 or 3 years ago to the board, and they seemed to react very favorably. And I think it's worth pointing out. Folks make a big deal over real property taxes these days. Certain states, 2 or 3 of the states have, you'll get the politicians and they'll want to do away with the property tax, but that's a significant part of the revenue for almost every jurisdiction in the nation. And so once they dial into the numbers seriously and discerningly, all of a sudden that particular option generally seems to go by the wayside. They may make adjustments, but in Virginia and especially in Gloucester County, there just seems to be a lot of checks and balances with the whole property tax and budgetary process that that are in place, so much so that taxes, interestingly, have remained stable.
Hmm.
Really, as I pointed out in that slide a few years back, over the past 30 years, they seem to have stabilized at about 0.6% of the fair market value of your property. So, and that has held, as I mentioned, so for 30 years, that whatever value level you're at, you can trust that your property taxes are going to be in and around 0.6%. See, that's even less than 1%. So that's and to have had that stabilized over 30 years, that's pretty incredible.
It really is.
Yeah, statistics. So kudos to the boards and the administrations that have worked diligently to keep that the case, so to speak.
Hmm.
Um, Other than that, uh, yeah, I don't. We look forward to wrapping up the project from our end in January. Then we will assist the Board of Equalization through their process. And just I would remind the folks a couple things that the date of value is 1/1/26. And if you look at what the market has done over the course of the last 3 years, I know when we redid, Quentin, the reassessment in 2023, values overall had increased 28%, and that was significant. So in that light, the 16%, that works out to, if you do the numbers, 17%, roughly 5% a year. And I think most folks track with that. There are periods of time where values seem to have stabilized, and then like as in the present, all of a sudden, for various reasons, economically, um, they'll start to climb up again. And I think we're seeing that. We certainly saw that over the course of the past summer, and where they just start to tick up again. And
Hmm.
and that's a lot to do with supply and demand and just the general inflationary rates that are existing out there. And we all recognize that mortgage rates haven't come down. So, and prices are still high. So
Definitely. That's
fortunately, it's
important
going
to
to
remember.
continue for a while.
Yeah, it looks that way. It definitely does.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much, Dan, for taking so much time to kind of explain this important process to us. A lot of the information, or some of the information that he spoke about, especially some of the links to the website and all of that, we will be sure to include in the description of the podcast. And we'll include the contact information as well for the General Reassessment Department if you have any other questions. So thank you again, Dan. I appreciate the time today during such a busy time of the year for you.
You're welcome, Quentin, anytime.